All right, so this is going to be a player profile look at Kyu Blu, who the Ravens drafted in the 5th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. Look, if you haven't watched one of these yet, there will be no film associated with this. I did a Twitter film study with some video and plays and spot shadows and explanations. You're welcome to check that out. I'll put a link in the description for that if you follow me on Twitter. All right, so Kyu Blu, 5th round pick, tough and physical, first of all, especially with wide receivers, especially in press coverage. I feel like he really likes getting his hands on people. He looks very comfortable, always in a great stance. He has tremendous eye discipline, if you ask me. Is able to play with leverage in zone particularly well, and I'll cover that a little bit here in a moment. But press coverage is what he's known for, and I think he is very good at it. There's some concern about him flipping his hips and running with receivers. And there were some times where I've seen people share stuff on Twitter, of him losing some space the further he gets downfield in press coverage. But I will tell you this, there was a lot of good reps in 2 of the games I watched. I had USC Stanford games in 2021 and 2022. So that means in 2022, he was matched up against Jordan Addison a lot. And he was matched up against Drake London in the 2021 game, especially in press physical coverage against both of those guys. And he's pretty good at that. I think it's been well established. I've seen him get beat more often in what looks like off-man coverage, 4, 5, 6 yards off. In my opinion, I would call those examples of split field coverages. And there's really no way to know what the call is pre-snap. So split field coverage, you're generally talking about like what the Bills, the Bengals, to a lesser extent the Broncos play, pre-snap identification of the receivers, of the width, the down and distance, the safety and corner to that side, and the nickel or inside linebacker communicate about what they're playing to that side. If you're a Ravens fan who follows EA or Edgar Allen on YouTube, he's doing a fantastic series talking about split field coverages from a Ravens defensive standpoint. For me, that's when I've seen Kyu Kelly give up bigger plays because there's more space for the receiver in his release and his get off, and it often ends up where there's a two-way go, meaning the receiver could run a post or a slant to the inside, or he could run a comeback or a back shoulder fade down towards the sideline. Those are the situations to me where it seems like Kyu Kelly has given up more plays in man coverage. So I'm trying to draw a distinction there between press man and off man based on the 3 games I watched, which again was USC in 2021 and 2022 and UCLA in 2022. Cole Jackson has also shared a number of singular plays of Kyu Kelly and all the Ravens draft picks. You might want to check that out if you follow him on Twitter. They're usually one play at a time, and he'll show you plays of Kyu Kelly covering different guys, particularly bigger receivers. I feel like he's done a nice job against. All right, so when I have seen him get beat, it's what I believe are those split field coverage concepts where he's isolated in man, but it looks like off man. Now, then I'm going to go back to a little bit of press man and talk about zone. I feel like when the coverage is declared or predetermined, he is exceptional and probably better than a first-round pick. Now, I know the 40 time isn't great, 4.52. Straight zone calls. Let me deal with those first or directly. I disagree with some people who I have seen say he does not have great zone instincts. Now, granted, I'm only basing this off of 3 games, but USC and UCLA both threw the ball significantly. Now, UCLA in 2022 actually ran the ball a lot with the running back they had, Charbonneau, or however you pronounce his name. But most often when Kyu Kelly is playing zone, it's a cover 2 concept to his side, and in some cases it's that off man. So it could be a split field call, and him and the safety could be pattern reading number 2. That's possible. To me, it looks like they're hard-coded zone coverage calls to his side, and he just has a natural ability to sit in between 2 routes and kind of give the quarterback no good option other than like the check down underneath the coverage. It's noticeable. Kyu Kelly will sink and he'll be under like a corner route. But he'll also be in position with his eyes on the quarterback to be able to break forward downhill into the flats or to turn and help out the safety on that corner route that's over the top of him. I think he's really good in zone. I don't have a ton of examples. I would think it was 7 that I saw over the course of the 3 games. And he did switch in against Jordan Addison in 2022. He was on the left side. Against USC in 2021, he was on the right side. But I think that was to match him up with Drake London and Jordan Addison. I don't know that for sure. I don't follow Stanford football like that, so I can't prove it. But seeing him play on both sides, depending on who the receiver was, kind of told me what the Stanford coaching staff thought of him. Okay, and I've kind of touched on it already. He's better in press man, in my opinion, when he can be physical with the wide receiver off the snap. In those press man situations, he seems less vulnerable to me because he's very good at playing leverage in press man, making physical contact with the receiver, balanced, great stance, eyes on the receiver. His eyes are so heavy on the receiver in those press man situations, he'll get run off sometimes on a run play to his side, meaning the offense runs the ball to his side, and the receiver identifies that it's press man and just runs him off, like on an outside release, go up the sideline. And Kyu Kelly's got to respect it because it's man. And he'll be 10, 12 yards down the field and then realize it's a run play and he's got to get off a late block or pseudo block by the receiver at that point and try to help out with the run support. Way better in press man than off man, if you ask me. I love how he plays with leverage in press man and in zone, to be honest with you. In zone, he never gets too close to the sideline, and I feel like he does a great job of staying between the routes, like I said earlier, and also understanding the depth that he needs to be at. I don't know where people had him rated, as the corner in this draft. I think being as the Ravens got him in the 5th round, it's an illustration of how deep the depth was here. I mean, you're talking about guys like Eli Ricks. I don't even think Eli Ricks got drafted. And he's a talented dude. Keely Ringo, I think, fell to the 4th round. Kyu Kelly being drafted in the 5th round, I think, says good things about him. And I think the film does too. All right. He looks most comfortable in that press man and straight zone. He's 6 foot, a little over 190 pounds, and he looks fast enough to play press man. I know the 40 was only 4.52 at the combine, so there's some concerns there. If you want to isolate that issue, that might be the reason why he doesn't play or isn't active every week or doesn't even make the team, is based on 3 games I watched. It's what a lot of people call off man, but I think it's just split field coverage, where you've either got a Meg call, which is man everywhere he goes on number 1. So he's man, but he's off man because they're trying not to give away the coverage. They want the quarterback to see the corner off and the safety off and maybe the nickel over there or not, depending on field of boundary, and the quarterback to not be able to identify the coverage based on alignment, whereas press man or something else might, quote, give away the coverage. So there is some benefits, even if that's not the player's strength, off man, split field coverage, whatever you want to call it. There's still some benefits to playing it, where him and the safety are reading number 2, and then maybe he's supposed to lock up on the outside receiver depending on 2's release. Hopefully I'm saying that in a way that makes sense and not being too negative, because look, there's a lot of good film of good coverage, physical coverage of him, particularly against Addison in 2022 and Drake London in 2021. First, Jordan Addison. Kyu Kelly showed a lot of physicality against him and a couple other receivers that lined up to his side. Jordan Addison did beat him on a post, which I believe was a split field coverage call. He beat him on a post so there's no help at all. The number 2 receiver had ran like an in cut at like 10 to 12 yards. Safety took that. So Kyu Kelly had to post by himself. Addison beat him. You could kind of see the separation a little bit the further they got down the field. I know Addison's not necessarily known as a burner, but it seems like he plays faster than his own 40 time. Having said that, Kyu Kelly had a number of good coverage plays on him. I'll attempt to finish up my Twitter film study of Kyu Kelly with highlights from that 2022 game against Jordan Addison and lowlights. Addison did score on a screen. Wasn't really Kyu Kelly's fault. He was trying to force the ball inside. It's a really well-designed screen that USC runs. I put it, if you remember my Patreon, you maybe watched the video. I posted up a really unique screen the way USC runs it. Gets a lot of second-level players going in the wrong direction with a run fake, and then screens it out to 2 receivers with the backside guard and tackle getting there to help out. It's an awesome play. All right, Drake London, 2021. Only had 4 catches for 68 yards. That was his season low. as his last year at USC. That was the lowest output he had. 4 catches, 68 yards. Having said that, he was open on a sideline route twice against Kyu Blu Kelly. Caught one, the other one he caught, his foot was out of bounds. He beat him on a slant in the end zone and was open. I think he should have caught the football, but it was maybe a little off target. There was another slant. The quarterback threw behind him, goes off his hands. Kyu Blu Kelly picks it, takes it to the house. So, and there was some great coverage. Kyu Blu Kelly had 2 great coverage examples down near the red zone. He had a deep ball, a deep go early in the game where they tested him on one of those off-man concepts that I'm talking about, where he turned his hips, took off, got over the top of Drake London, didn't let him get beat, elevated, knocked the ball away. I thought he competed. Those people that say, all the Ravens looked at that game and then they saw how Drake London did against the Ravens in Baltimore, Week 15 of 2022, and they were like, hey, this guy matches up well. And if you forget, and actually it was Week 16 game in December against the Ravens in Baltimore, Drake London had 7 catches for 96 yards, 3 or 4 of them on Marlon Humphrey, and one of them was an amazing catch down inside the red zone. So if you compare those 2 games, the output that Drake London had and then the way that Kyu Kelly was able to compete with him, it's favorable. It's definitely favorable. No question about it. I have to disagree with some of the things. I don't find him to be. I think he's willing to get involved in run support, and I've seen examples of him doing so. I think it's inconsistent though. He's a willing tackler. He will get involved. I just, however, have seen too many times where he's getting blocked and not getting involved in the play. I mean, sometimes, you're the force player. You got to hold outside leverage, so you're not going to get involved in the tackle. Your job is just to make sure the ball goes inside and your linebackers and your safeties can be the guys flowing inside out to make the play. And I think he's good at that. There are times, however, where I think he's getting blocked 8, 10, 12 yards downfield, isn't getting off the block quick enough for me to get involved in the play that ends up being a 6 or 7 yard run play, generally to the outside. I would say my assessment of him as a run support player is more inconsistent than some of the other things that I have read. I didn't really put examples of that, to be honest with you, in the Twitter film study that I did, which again, I'll link up in the description. All right, last couple of points. How does he project this year for the Ravens as a rookie? If I was to rank him with, Pepe, JAD, and Brandon Stevens, I would say that he could compete with Brandon Stevens to get on the field. Now, I believe that the Ravens are going to sign Rock Ya-Sin or Marcus Peters now, or maybe even before this video gets published. But point is, if I was to compare him, I don't think he compares to I don't think he compares to Pepe, who's going to be more of a slot corner / hybrid safety. I think Kyu Kelly actually has some good film in the slot, but I haven't seen enough of it. I think I've only seen 5 reps, and I put 3 of them on Twitter of him playing in the slot, and he looked quite comfortable. I think athletically, he compares to Brandon Stevens. Maybe better in press man coverage. Maybe not as competitive in off-man quarters coverage, split field coverages. I'm not sure who I could say is better right now. Brandon Stevens has, more reps against high-level competition in the NFL, clearly. I mean, even though he gave up, the game-winning 2-point conversion against Jacksonville, he's competing in that game multiple times. Now, that play sticks out to me. And there's actually a very specific play against Drake London in 2021. Same exact motion, same side of the field. Receiver motioning down at the snap, and then on the snap, running a little speed out back to the area where he came from, the far left side of the field. Kyu Blu Kelly against Drake London breaks that pass up short of the end zone, knocks the ball away, so London doesn't even get the catch. If you remember, well, I know you remember if you're a Ravens fan and you listen this long, Brandon Stevens gave up that catch to, I think, Zay Jones to win the game for Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Awful game for the Ravens to lose. If we win that game and win the Giants game, which were both very winnable, you're talking about a totally different season in terms of final record and that last week of the season situation with the Cincinnati Bengals. But I digress. I think this is a great pick. There might be some plays where he gives up yards, especially if the split field we continue to use split field coverages, which we will. And I might be wrong about that being his weakness. It might just be off man. If you want, check out a video series by E.A. Edgar Allen, like I said earlier, covering the Ravens split field coverage. I think he's done 2 of them now, maybe more. I think if you really want to look at how Kyu Kelly can play, look at the games against Addison and London, NFL level receivers. Regardless of what people think about, Drake London's, beginning of the season last year, because there was a period of time, I would say like week 6 or 7 for about the next 5 weeks where he didn't have much impact. He did have an 8-catch game with a touchdown against the Rams in week 2, but to finish the season last year, I'm not sure, a lot of people probably aren't even aware of this. Drake London had, I think, 42 catches in the last 5 games, something like that. So it was a pretty big number. He had some impact, a lot more impact, and a lot more yards than he did earlier in the year. It seemed like they figured things out, him and Desmond Ridder. And I think when you look at the film of Kyu Kelly competing with Drake London, it's favorable. For a 5th-round pick, I think it's a great pick. If you look at his lineage, I mean, first of all, his dad's Brian Kelly, Super Bowl champion, multiple interceptions returned for touchdowns for the Tampa Bay Bucks, in that cover Tampa 2 scheme. He played at Stanford, incredible, program, extremely well coached there. Obviously, a great head coach for a long time. And prior to that, Bishop Gorman High School out of Las Vegas. High-level, elite football program nationally. And Kyu Kelly competed there, did a great job in track. I think he plays a little faster than a 4.52. I wouldn't want to see him matched up in off-man against some of the faster receivers in the NFL. I do think, and I think it was Cole Jackson who said this on Twitter, I do think he looks like he matches up very well with the taller, bigger receivers that he's got to be physical with. Guys who normally out-physical certain DBs don't seem to do that to Kyu Kelly. Drake London isn't the most physical receiver in the NFL, but certainly at 6'5", he's a guy who's capable of being physical and out-physicaling smaller guys. Look, if you guys don't like these player profiles because there's no video, please let me know. I want to put out content that people enjoy. I'm not willing to put college film on my YouTube channel. I'm willing to put it on Twitter because it's not monetized and there's no reason for that to get me in the wrong people's crosshairs on Twitter. But on YouTube, I got to keep it straight commentary for a college video. Just trying to give you my assessment based on the 3 games I watched of Kyu Kelly. I think it's a great pick for the 5th round. Is he going to start this year? Well, I wouldn't say so because I think we're going to sign, a veteran corner, Yasin or Peters, who's going to fill that role. But Kyu Kelly, in the event that someone gets injured, having to be brought in, looks like a serviceable guy. I can't say that he comes in this year and if he gets to play, looks like JAD did for 2 or 3 weeks before they just kind of shut him down. I think injuries were a problem there. I'm certainly not trying to be disrespectful to him. Kyu Kelly can compete, can play against high-level competition. There's film of him from 2021 and 2022 that shows him doing just that. Appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoy the video, please let me know in the comment section, first of all. Second of all, consider sharing a link and then pasting that link somewhere out on social media to help this video get more reach.